no matter where you come from, your race, whatever you have done against Allah's instruction, if it makes you regret, you still have a lot of hope in the mercy of Allah. It's a sign. We need to save ourselves from hypocrisy. Don't you agree? What is hypocrisy? Those who say we believe, but they're not really believers. Two types of hypocrisy. The first is those who say they are Muslim, but they are not Muslim. Inshallah, there are none amongst us from that group. Those who say we are Muslim, but they are lying to you. They are not Muslim. May Allah protect us. But the second category is what we need to fear. What is it? Those who say they are Muslim, but their lives are led in a way that does not depict that. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَمَا هُمْ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. Verse number 8 of Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah speaks about some of the people. They say we are believers, and we believe in the hereafter, but they are not believers. I've already explained both types of hypocrites, and I've said that sometimes we are from the second category, whereby we say we are mu'min, we say we follow Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, but wallahi our deeds are heading in another direction. Imagine you say you the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there's no salah, there's no Quran, there's no ibadah, there's no tilawah. How do you expect to have happiness, contentment? How do you expect to be protected from anxiety and depression and stress? This is what we want to save ourselves from. You really want to save yourself from all of that, you will definitely need to follow the instruction of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
Recently, a Saudi scholar just got locked up for 10 years. 10 years. Do you know why he got locked up as well? For speaking out and saying, don't go to concerts, don't go to these rappers, don't go to nightclubs, don't intermix between men and women. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have the haram, we have Mecca, we have Medina. Go to the haram and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Listen to the adhan that fills the city. And he got locked up for 10 years. Right? And this is what the West, the liberal Muslims, these are the type of people they want to hang around with. These are the type of people they want to take their religion from. Right? The people that try to suppress the haqq and the truth. No matter what you do, you can never suppress the truth. We don't care if we get canceled. You can take us off TikTok, you can take us off Instagram, all the platforms. But Allah's da'wah will continue to grow. As the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that this deen will reach every household no matter what. Saudi has jailed hundreds of scholars that spoke out. This sheikh did not care. All he cared about was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He feared only Allah. And he paid for it. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him. We don't care. We're not going to bend our religion. We're not going to bend our ways and our social values and change our ideologies and change our values because a couple of fools see otherwise. We're going to follow the best human being, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if you have a problem with that, we don't give a damn. Assalamu alaikum.
In 2013, the powers that be in the NBA already knew that Silicon Valley and big tech planned on hijacking the human psychology for their own authoritarian and global corporate gain. And so me talking about mental health put a spotlight on that. When I asked the question of, well, what is more important, money, power, or honor? Money, power, or love? Money, power, or faith? They didn't want anybody asking those questions. That's why they put the false story out. That's why they wanted the black people in the communities I grew up in to think that I was just a knucklehead or asking for some outrageous accommodation. Because what they're most afraid of is that black people, first and foremost in this country, get off of the dopamine project. Because we're the driving force. We're the calling card.
For sure, I agree.
We're the ones that they prop up, that drive culture that says radical materialism is an acceptable trade for not having any faith in God. LeBron James was given $1 billion by Nike, the establishment, the anti-human, neoliberal, Marxist, globalist establishment, which is also Church of LGBTQ, to He was given this $1 billion
to
keep his mouth shut about the single greatest humanitarian crisis of our generation. And that is the 2 million people being placed in the concentration camps in China for no other crime than being Muslim. Now, he won't speak on that. Why? Number one, it's an economic injustice that he's done to take that payoff to shut his mouth, because really he should have asked Nike for $40 billion.
Of course.
He should have got at least $500 million a year, if not $1 billion a year, because Nike makes $40 billion of revenue a year, and he represents at least 1/40 of their commercial value and influence.
I agree.
100%.
But he took the billion because when you're a radical materialist and you come from Akron, Ohio, like I come from Minneapolis, or you come from one of these other black communities, you measure your success based on what other black people have. And because other black people don't have $1 billion, he feels that the $1 billion he got is an accomplishment that he can hold over y'all and say, look at me.
Right.
I'm successful. But it came with a quid pro quo. And the quid pro quo is you are the new head house Negro. Ooh. You and Obama, sine qua non black bourgeoisie sellouts, the black bourgeoisie. They are the go-between to the black community. They're the ones that are going to negotiate the terms of our social contract with the establishment from now until whenever.
So you call Stephen A. Smith a sellout too?
He's another one. He's just the comment. You got LeBron as an athlete. You got Stephen A. as a commentary voice. You got Barack Obama as a political figure. You got Oprah Winfrey as the women's right. I mean, pick one. It's hard to find a black public figure who's a celebrity who hasn't sold us out.
Remember one thing that is very important. Allah sent you in this world to test you, that's all. There's no other mission for you. You will come in the world, you are tested and you leave. Someone else will come, they are tested and they leave. When they leave, Allah knows. What will happen in your test, we can tell you now. Allah has tested you in order to see if you find Him and you worship Him alone. Worship Him alone. And He will put in your life hunger, He will put fear, He will put so many other things. He will put loss of health, loss of people whom you love perhaps, and so many other things, just to see how you react. Allah says this is part of your test. Did you read the Quran? This verse is in Surah Baqarah. Allah tells you, we will test you with X, Y, and Z. He tells you straight.
The mother who used to punish me when I was a child, who said that there was a demon in me. One day I was at her house and she told me, she said, when you were a child, I used to think that the devil was in you. My parents were both Christians. My father was a Christian minister. My mother was a Southern Baptist Christian. She was very devout, as were most of my family. We have many, many ministers in our family, and they have churches all over America. So I was brought up in a strong, strong Christian environment, in a strong Christian neighborhood. And I asked my parents when I was 10 years old, now that Isa ibn Maryam died for me when I hadn't been born, because he had been dead for some 2,000 years, how did he die for me? And I lived in a city where there was a lot of crime, a lot of violence. I saw people shot. I said, if he died for the sins of the world, then why is the world still sinning? So no one can answer these questions for me. And I asked my mother again at another time, I said, if Jesus was God, then how did he himself die? How could he be killed and he's God? And if he's God, how does he die and come back to life? My mother couldn't answer it. My father couldn't answer it. And every time I would get into mischief, my mother assumed that there was this demon that everybody had told her was in me. And she would beat me severely. I mean, really, really bad. And she would punish me severely. She would tell me to go up into my room, stay in my room for the whole month. Summer would come, school would be out, the kids would be playing. She said, you can't come out till the summer's over. And then I went to a city called Jackson, Mississippi, a city I'd never been in before in my life. When I got to this city, I was there less than a month, and I was walking down the street that I don't know why I was walking down the street. I looked inside of a bookstore, and I saw a Mutawa. I can only say Mutawa because of his dress and his long beard. And I backed up, and I walked into the store, and I said, excuse me, what is your religion? This is the first thing I asked him. He said, we're Muslims. And I said, what do you believe? He said, we believe in one God. And I said, and tell me more about this. And they said, well, you can come to this masjid and we'll tell you, we'll teach you what you need to know. I walked from that building to that masjid that second. When I walked inside, I knew I belonged there. Immediately, I saw some brothers come in, they offered salat, they went in sujood, and I'm like, wow. I just felt in my heart, this is where I belong. They talked to me about the religion of Islam, and they assigned one brother to work with me and to teach me. This brother's name was Rafiq, and Brother Rafiq gave me his Quran. He said, this is my Quran, I'm giving it to you to read. And when I started reading this Quran, tears was in my eye, because I knew at that point that La ilaha illallah, I knew it. What was remarkable to me was when I read the Quran, where it talked about how Allah sends the winds to bring the clouds, to bring the rains, these things that I had witnessed in the creation. And immediately when I walked into that masjid, I took Shahada. And that began my life as a Muslim. Probably the greatest thing for me was that the mother, who used to punish me when I was a child, who said that there was a demon in me, one day I was at her house and she told me, she said, when you were a child, I used to think that the devil was in you. She said, now I know that God was guiding you to something that he didn't show any of us. And she said, I know from watching you today that the religion that you have is the right way. And what you have given is the correct thing. And she took Shahada. She said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadan Rasulullah. And my mother died as a Muslim. This to me was a big, big victory. My sister became Muslim. My brother-in-laws became Muslims. My friends became Muslims. When I was in the military, soldiers that worked for me became Muslims. I can't count. If you ask me the number of people who Allah guided to Islam for me, I couldn't even give you a number.
I said my observation is that every animal has what? A natural enemy. I'm going to call your attention to a book that you have to read. You have to read, brothers and sisters. The book that I'm about to tell you is a classic, written 500 years before Christ. This book is so important in Western civilization that many major corporations make it required reading for top management. Probably all of you got the book already. I shouldn't even mention it, but I guess I'll mention it. It's called The Art of War by Sun Tzu, S-U-N-T-Z-U. You must read the book. How many of you have it? Raise your hand. Good. How many don't have it? How many are going to get it? Good. Two things he said in this book I want you to think about. Number one, he said, if a man knows himself, but he doesn't know his enemy, he will be successful 50% of the time. And he will fail 50% of the time. And if a man doesn't know himself and he doesn't know his enemy, he will always fail. And if a man knows himself and knows his enemy, he will be successful. Number two, and this is really, really heavy. It's heavy. I'm put number two here. Let's see if it, keep it there for a second, okay? Would you remind me that I have it here? Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Question number one, how many of you in this audience believe in Allah, the Supreme Being, or God? Raise your hand. Very good, very good. How many of you believe in his prophets? Raise your hand. Good. How many of you believe in the scriptures that the prophets brought? Raise your hand. Good. How many of you believe in angels? Life after death? Good. How many of you believe in the devil? Again, how many believe in the devil? Raise your hand. Okay, good. Put your hand down. Let me give you some news. You don't believe in the devil. You acknowledge the existence of the devil, and there's a major difference. You will never find in Quran or Hadith, amantu bi shaitan, right? You don't believe in the shaitan. He's real. He exists. Yeah, he is. But belief is not just mere acknowledgement. You don't just acknowledge the existence of Allah. You believe in him, you have faith in him, you trust him, you depend upon him. More about that at another time, but it's really a deep statement. Now, question. Listen to what Allah says in the Quran. Inna shaytana lakum aduun fattaqiduhu aduwa. The devil is your enemy. So take him as an enemy. The devil is real. Christians teach it. It's in the Bible. It's in the Torah. Moses taught it. It's in the Injil, the gospel. Jesus taught it. All the prophets talked about this creature called Shaitan. He's the enemy of man.
Qadar is basically what ulama said. What hit was never going to miss, and what missed was never going to hit. And at the times when you don't have control over things, and you try your best, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a purpose for this. Everything happens for a reason. And a person who relies on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and knows that Allah for a fact has put everything where it should belong, then it eases your heart.